If you want to improve your placements and qualify for cups this season, skyrocketing your PR, but also potentially earning, then you've clicked on the right video. I'm not only going to be telling you how to improve and prepare for these cups, but I'm going to tell you how to play them and maximize the points you get. Learning the meta is the most important thing you can do whenever a new season drops, and this can be done in two ways: self-practice or the pros. Self-practice is where you're the one playing the new season and you're learning all the new tech. Hopefully a lot of you watching fall into this bracket, because if you're not playing it in a new season, then your passion might be lost. However, I don't want you just learning the basics, and I actually want you to think beyond this and how you can start using it in comp to your advantage. It may feel weird at first because the new season's just come out and you're wanting to have fun, but getting ahead of the curve is really important, and it's what the pros do each season. Talking of the pros, as I mentioned, this is the other learning method, and it's essentially watching their gameplay through VODs or even streams and learning their new tricks they're using, because normally they're always the first ones to discover these. Bonus points if you watch teams with top coaches like BloodX or Raz, as they're going to be backed by extra brain power. Next, I want to talk about the fundamentals that make the meta and the prompts you should be thinking about to get your Fortnite brain working. What's the best loadout that you want to carry, and how will you get it? How can the new items help you win in fights, including refreshes? Can this change the way you get surge? How are you now going to rotate? Are you going to play for any mid-game objectives to get better loot like bunkers? What's the best layer to now play on, low, mid or high ground? How are most games being won this season, and how can we do that? One mistake a lot of players make when they learn new things, not only in Fortnite but general life, is they just store it away in their brain. But the problem with this is they're going to get forgotten about. So you're probably now thinking, oh, what if I write them down? But similar goes for this. I'm guilty myself of having a massive list of tournament mistakes and how to fix them, but in the moment of a heated fight, you aren't going to be thinking of this. So the most important thing you need to do is actually implement these into your gameplay. Not only does this mean you won't forget, but it will happen naturally, which is perfect in a game like Fortnite where you don't always have a second to think. Teammates are just as important, because if you don't have good ones, say goodbye to any good duos or trio placements this season. You might not even have a duo or trio yet, so I'm going to be telling you how to find good teammates. Firstly, you can leave your region and PR in the comments, which will be seen by other players. This is good because I'm in the improvement niche, so whoever's watching you know is going to take the game serious. The next is scrim servers, which you're probably already in, and each of these discords will have a looking for group channel. What I found works best is doing a bit of both, posting your own credentials in there but also looking at others to see if anyone is of interest. I've used this method a lot and it's worked really well for me. I've found good and chill teammates that I still play with to this day. Last is socials, but I'd only use this as a last call because you're only pushing the boat out to the existing circle you're already in. Yeah, you can search certain terms, but it's quite long-winded. Also, I found people don't really like to disclose their PR on socials. That leads nicely onto the next point, and PR is what people are going to be looking at most when looking for teammates, because it's the #1 metric of measuring how well you play in tournaments. However, it's important to understand that everyone has different perceptions of PR and placements. Some players are just happy to go off the PR, some people won't be happy with the PR if you haven't got good recents, and some people even go further than this and start looking at how many kills you drop to see if you can fight. However, just because you find a high PR player, it doesn't mean it's always going to work. And don't worry to all you low PR players who are now worried, because you can do just as well. That's because compatibility is just as important. This is how well you naturally work together before building any sort of chemistry. You can use the following checklist to see if you would be a good fit. Your playstyles need to match, and it's no good if there's one aggressive player that wants to key all the time whereas the other is passive and wants to play for endgame. You should only have one player per role. For example, 2 IGLs is one of the worst things you can have. You should have similar skill level, because if you play with someone much better than you, they're going to have an ego which can affect performance, but play with someone much worse than you and they may drag you down. Pre-planning and preparation is just as important as what you do in the tournament. The more you have pre-planned, the less you'll need to think about in-game, which can keep you more calm, but also you have more chance to think about things like your micro mechanics, like your movement. Not only that, by being organized and knowing what you have to do, you'll make less mistakes, which can be the difference between a good or bad tournament. Now let's go through the list of things you'll want to pre-plan to get as organized as possible. Drop maps are needed to ensure you always outdrop your opponents and win off spawn. Most of the good ones will be paid versions, but you can still get hold of free versions as well, and these will still be better than nothing. You'll need an optimized loot path to loot up faster, which means you can get out of spawn quicker and get priority on rotate, but also if you're contested, you're going to get the loot advantage. If you're making one of these for team game modes, it's important you stick to your own areas and don't cross paths to keep the efficiency. And anyone can make these for free on Fortnite.gg, mainly making a sequence of what order you're going to get your chests. Then you want to pre-plan your rotates out of spawn for every zone possibility or situation. For example, if the zone pulls max but you want to get there fast, you can plan to use the map's natural rotation rotation like launch pads. Or you may pull zone but be scuffed from off spawn, so know where to go and scrap loot. Again, you can pre-plan this on Fortnite.gg, but you'll only really understand the zone mechanics and timings once you start practicing this in-game. You'll need a surge plan in high elo lobbies because without one you can easily die to storm surge. Within this you'll need to know when and where to get your surge. This is normally from powered positions like high mountains on nearby rotating players. The more you understand player behavior of where and when they rotate, the easier you're going to get tags. Again, this is learned from in-game experience, especially in tournaments or no zone rule scrims, as these rotates are more realistic. And the last is basically combining all these things to make a game plan. This is where you get an idea of how you'll want to play the tournament. For example, how aggressive will you play your first game? If you get a high point game, will you carry on this playstyle? If you don't get a high point game, will you carry on playing aggressive? The IGL will be mainly responsible for making this, but should still consult their teammates. Practice is when you start implementing your prep and your game sense into your gameplay. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this is really important because you can be one of the smartest players and know loads about Fortnite, but if you aren't actually transferring this over to your gameplay, it's pointless. How you should practice depends on what your focus is. For example, if you're weak at endgame, don't sit around just playing 1v1s all day, play scrims. It's really important that you find your weakness either through self-critique or get your friends to do it for you. Whatever this is should be prioritized in your training because this is likely the thing holding you back most. You definitely don't need to drop everything and only practice that one thing. By prioritizing, what I mean is practice that one thing more than everything else, but also try and put it at the start of your session so you're more fresh and focused. For those getting a bit worried that I've mentioned practice because you don't have much time to put into the game, don't worry because it definitely is quality over quantity. I've witnessed players that only play a couple of hours a day improve and do much better than players that play all day. This is because the latter often thinks where they play so much, improvement will be a given. But that's not true at all. So many players just hop on and mindlessly play game after game, compared to the other player who knows he needs to make his limited time worthwhile. He'll get online with the aim of improving and have a structured plan of what and when to practice. I rarely hear anyone speak on game management, which is surprising because it's such an underrated skill and so important for these cups. Basically, it's like real life time management but for Fortnite tournaments, to maximize the amount of points you can get within a given time throughout different stages of the tournament. For the longer 3-hour cups where you get 10 games, you can roughly play around 7 games out fully. And for the shorter 2-hour cups that are normally 2 rounds, you can play around 5. This should only be used as a rough guideline because it largely depends on different factors like your queue times, but also if every game goes all the way to heal off. I'm telling you this because it's the foundation of game management and it's crucial for finding the balance between burning through your games or the opposite and having too many left at the end of the tournament. You may have heard this strategy before because it got popularized by the pros, but basically to not burn through games, you cap yourself a certain amount of games per hour. This can give you a mental reset because you're probably tilted from the bad start, but also by waiting, this is going to drop you down on the leaderboard, meaning you're going to enter lower elo, meaning the lobbies are easier for you to get a comeback game. If the opposite happens and you can't play all your games out within the time left, you can start making riskier plays in these games like landing better POIs or playing more aggressive. This could result in higher point games, but if you die it's no problem because you'll still have your spare games, but also you wouldn't have spent that much time in the game, especially if you're going to go more risky off spawn. The opposite of this is when you spend ages in a game to only get a few points. This is one of the worst things you can do for your tournaments. And lastly, the game management people struggle with a lot is knowing whether they should leave or stay in their last game. My usual rule of thumb is if your second to last game is a dead lobby but you haven't actually started getting many placement points yet and you've got the loot to go on and win the game, then definitely stay in because it's risky leaving this easier game for last queue, which is going to be stacked with Storm Surge all game. If you have any questions regarding the video or just Fortnite in general, as well as any video ideas you would like to see, then make sure to leave it in the comments. If you found the video helpful, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a like and consider using code EBENTS, as these are the best free ways to support the channel. Also make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because I've got way more content on the way to help you improve.